the other spectacular moment you have is as a musician. So you've had great success on that front as well. How does radio play in that world and in that relationship in terms of your fans and you and getting your music to them and sort of highlighting what's important about it?
Well, radio's always been a kind of a magical gateway for me. Ever since I was a kid, it was a place that I found myself. It was a place that I discovered who I was. When I was a kid, whether it was listening to the classic rock station or you know, whatever was popular at that time, in the car with my mother and she's singing along. I mean, I have memories that have shaped who I am. The other thing that I love about radio is that it surprises us. You can be in a friend's car, you could be at a restaurant, you could be walking down the street, you could be in the lobby of this building, and you can hear a song, and maybe you would hear it once and not get it, or twice and maybe not like it, or 4 times you still don't love it, but 2 years from now you could listen and hear that song and be like, oh, that was the soundtrack of my summer. And that's what I think radio has a power to be ubiquitous, to be this connective tissue in our lives, and I really have always appreciated that. And as an artist, every time our song gets played on the radio, I've always gotten excited about that, because I know what a rare gift it is to be introduced in a way that is focused and about the song itself, naked of any other distractions. So I've always had a deep respect for it and love for it.
Talk a minute about, when we're on the subject of your music, you know, people, consumers, a little different than musicians, when the first time they hear a song, it's a little jarring because it's unfamiliar territory. They sort of fall into the groove of the song or they don't. In radio, we sort of think they have to hear it about 10 times before it really gets locked in as their favorite song. How do you think that process works, where people go, I love that song, to I want that artist in my collection? You know, sort of your identity of who you are, which is sort of a different experience. Do you think there's something that causes some people to say, yes, I like this song, that's fine, I'll listen to the radio, versus I like that song and that's a part of me, I must own it?
I do. I think it can be a couple of things that makes that happen. It can be the artist that you believe in, the relationship to the artist. It can be a song that you never heard before, of course. But I think if you move people and you connect to people in some way, and when I say move people, I mean either excite them, make them feel something, anything at all. Because oftentimes we hear things and we watch things and we feel nothing. That happens to us most of the time. And I think the win is when you feel something, when you think something. And you know, I certainly pay attention when that happens. Of course, the idea of ownership is an interesting one, and we could have a whole conference around that probably as that changes. But I think moving and talking and communicating to people is really interesting. I will say this, though. The bands that I have loved the most in my life have taken some getting used to.
Right.
They're the ones that really got under my skin, that it took me 5, 10 times, and then something clicked. And I hope that doesn't get lost. And I know a lot of people here probably are really pressured to make something that connects immediately, but that's not always the litmus test of what's going to last forever. Sometimes things disturb us, sometimes they challenge us, sometimes they seem to not work in that moment, but in hindsight they become a really powerful part of the pop zeitgeist.
You probably, among the artists I've met, have one of the more intellectual approaches to it, that you really think it through and have a point of view. What do you think is happening to someone like you? You become popular. It's hard to be of the people anymore. I mean, you walk down
I'd
the
like
street.
to think I have been
Yes.
popular. I've read about it.
So how do you keep that connection going today? What are the sources you look to give you that kind of inspiration that you once got from just being in the world and now people look at you as part of the world?
I think consistency. I think that really I do my best not to let people down, to make something that's interesting. There's that, somebody passed along Kurt Vonnegut's rules of writing to me, and I only remember one of them, but it was pretty great. It was completely irreverent, but interesting, and the one that I remember is never let people feel like you've wasted their time. And I thought that was really interesting. As far as a concept is never let people feel like you've wasted their time. I think that hard work has been something that's paid off for me time and time again. And I'm incredibly passionate about what I do, so I'm willing to fight for it, to bleed for it, to not sleep for it. As long as it's fun and interesting and you're not bored to tears, I'll keep coming around.
So let's bring it back to advertising for a minute. What lessons do you have? Because everybody in this room at one time or another, one form, is using sound to try and convince somebody or to try and communicate with someone. What are some rules you have that you think are applicable to the world of advertising in terms of communicating? You're not going to make people like a product they're not going to like, but you can sure connect people who might like the product with that product. How do you get that message across?
I think you take great risk and you try to fail. That's what I want. I think if you look at the greatest advertising of all time, it's the advertising that took risk. If I asked you guys what you remember out there and what your favorite advertising is, I doubt it was something standard or something that was traditional. It was probably something that broke the mold, something that screamed out loud, hey, we're different. Something that was funny or fun or crafted beyond belief, or took a chance or explored some new technology. But I would take risk, is what I would say, because that's what I want to see as a consumer. That's what I want to see as an artist. I want to see you guys make things that I go, wow, I've got to steal that somehow and apply that to something I'm doing in the interactive world, in a music video or somewhere else. So I would say taking risks is probably the most important thing.